All right. Welcome to today's office hours. My name is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve and your host. Yet we're going to have a guest speaker today, and really thrilled about this. I had asked Lisa a couple weeks ago whenever I was going on vacation, hey, Lisa, would you be able to handle this class for me? And she was gracious enough to say yes. And then we weren't able to have the class after all. Once I came back, I looked at the material she produced, and it's like, wow, this is good stuff. And we needed to go over it again. And so today I'm really happy to introduce to you guys Lisa Crumby. She is part of our premium services department. We've got a whole section of our navigator team that handles you guys as agents and helps through our premium services area, you guys to get in a much more organized way in your business and just getting Realvolve set up to really handle that. And what I was really hoping that she would spend some time today on is kind of what she teaches in the premium services area and navigators, and just have kind of a question and answer time to be able to help you guys make informed decisions about your business and how we might be able to help you in other ways. So just give a warm welcome to Lisa. I talk with her every day, and she is amazing. So guys, don't hesitate to ask questions. I will be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have questions, put them in the chat, and then I can break in and ask those with the time that we've got as well. So Lisa, if you can take it away, go right ahead.
Will do. And thank you, Mark, and thank you for those kind words. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. As Mark had mentioned, my name is Lisa, and I am the manager of premium services here at Revolve. My goal here, and I work with, as Mark said, workflow strategists, and we help agents like yourselves to get their systems, workflows, templates, everything up and running so you can use the platform efficiently. I myself, just a little bit of background on me. I've been an agent for 20 years. I can't believe I'm saying 20 years. I've been using the system for about 6 years, and it is amazing. There's so much to learn, so much to do. It is very robust, does a lot. But for today's lesson, I really wanted to go back and focus on the basics, because I think a lot of us at times, we really jump the gun and want to do everything at once. And there's a lot to learn. The system does so much. And I learned something new in this platform every single day. Ask Mark, something new every single day. So enough about me. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, because I'm going to be sharing a couple Revolve screens as I go through. Let me just start with that before I forget. And Mark, you said I have permission here, so let me give that a whirl. Okay, so could everyone see my screen?
It's coming. There we go. We've got it.
Okay, perfect. So let me just bypass this one. So for today, just to kind of get through what we're going to cover today, we're going to go back to the basics, and we are going to cover some best practices. I just want to do a quick overview on signatures, the basics of a transaction. We're going to talk about help and support after the fact. We also have a free workflow giveaway for you today. And then I wanted to talk just briefly about premium services and what we offer. So let's just dig right in. So every day when we're in Revolve, we should be logging in every single morning. Everyday best practices. I highly recommend that you all, when you log in, let me go to my Revolve account. Every morning, best practices is that you should check this little bell icon at the top of your screen. What that's going to do is just going to give you notifications, or even account notifications as well, but it can show you workflow activities that have started, any emails that maybe went through, bounced back, or even correspondence as well. So wanted to show you that you should be checking that on a regular basis. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a bullet point list here. Mark, will we be sharing this slide deck after the fact?
Yeah, typically what I typically do is after we go through the presentation, I'll put this back out onto the Facebook community page. Everybody can have access to it, and there'll be links typically that I put in there. So absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So again, we're going to talk about best practices. I just went over the bell notification, but also keep in mind, it's really important to go ahead and scroll through your activities so you have an idea of what you're going to have going on today. And when I mean activities, scrolling through over here on this right side on your dashboard is going to show you any past due activities that you have. Past due activities are always in red, and they always show first. Once you get through those past due activities, if I scroll down, you're going to see that I have my current day activities in black. Keep in mind that we all always have, and don't mind this is just my group fast account, my test account, but you may always have past due activities because they may be based upon checklist items that if you don't have all of them just yet, then we can't mark it complete. So you will have those past due activities in red, current day only in black. We're not going to show you future activities because if you have multiple workflows running and hundreds, if not thousands of contacts in your database, you're going to be showing 10,000 future activities, and that can be a little overwhelming. And then also best practice here, check this contact cross section. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it is a widget on our board. It is a fail-safe notification for to make sure when we're reaching out to our contacts that no one slips through the cracks. And as real estate agents, and I have been known to do this, I let clients fall through the cracks. Just wanted to let you know, for most of you, you will just see when you log into Revolve, you just see one picture here, but on my slide, I'm showing you two. And I always point this out to my clients because there's a filter on, that's the default. And there's also filter off on the contact cross section. So let me just really briefly show you. If I hit filter on and I click it to filter off, it's going to show me a different set of numbers. And I just wanted to show you that because it can be a little confusing. So up here, and Mark so graciously, he actually did a contact cross section training for our team this week. But filter on basically means it's going to apply the threshold limits that you set up in your settings. The filter off is going to display anyone that has a contact stage or a contact status in your settings and in your dashboard. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just kind of wanted to show you, number one, that you should check this on a regular basis, and also to check to flip on the filter on, filter off. And Mark, feel free if there's anything you'd like to add, go for it.
Yeah. So what I do plan on doing is the training that I did for our team on this. I'm going to do that as office hours next week. So
awesome.
We'll do the entire training and go over that contact cross section next week, and just how it's generated, why it's generated, and how to do some setup. So that will be a training all by itself. It's really good content from what the feedback that I got. So it's on its way.
Okay, perfect. And thank you for doing that. I actually have in this slide deck, Mark, if you wouldn't mind posting in chat, I put a link to a contact cross-section overview. It's a video that one of our strategists put together just so you guys have a little, a go-to reference video on the contact cross-section. So Mark, if you wouldn't mind putting that in chat, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you. And then one last thing for best practices, I always like to share this with our clients, scrubbing your database. This is always a work in progress. I promise you that there is no perfect database. Even mine, it can be a little messy at times. So always a work in progress. Make sure that you're working it on a regular database or a regular time frame here. And Mark, I also put in a little video there on scrubbing and filtering your database, because we do use filters and tags when we're scrubbing our database. So Mark, if you wouldn't mind putting that in chat, I'd appreciate it. All righty, so let's dig in really quick. I want to go right down to signature templates. I'm not going to do a huge overview on this, but coaching our navigator clients, signatures is the big one. So if you have not done that already, or if you already have, editing is always a good thing. But we have 2 signatures in our accounts. So let me just kind of go there really quick. I'm in my dashboard and I'm going to click on templates here. And then on the left-hand side, I'm going to just search signature. And hopefully there's only a couple in here. There we go. So we have signature here, and you're going to see it's email marketing, but this is just basically our text signature that we can use. And then signature enhanced is our fancy email signature that we can use. The only thing that I really wanted to point out on the signatures is that it's super important to go ahead and put, if you're using our SMS services in Revolve, it's important to put some sort of a disclosure into that template like we have in our sample here, that this is a text message line only. And if they want to get a hold of you, to call your cell number and put your cell number here. Does anyone have any questions on that? Feel free to speak out loud or ask in chat. Mark, you can monitor chat. But I really wanted to point that out because I think a lot of people get confused that, number one, why can't we use our cell number directly in Revolve, which we can't because the cell phone carriers don't allow us to do that. So Revolve provides you that SS number for free. So I just like to put that little disclaimer in my text message as it's going out, especially for new leads. It can be a little confusing. Put the disclosure and you should be good to go there. Mark, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, just one of the questions that Cindy popped up here was, do my team members use the same number as the team leader? So each person in the team has their own SMS number. So the signatures that you set up, even though the name of the signature template itself says signature or signature enhanced, if you're logged in, Cindy, as yourself, you're going to see your signatures. If you are logged in as one of the other users, even though the template name is the same, it will be their signature. Everybody has their own signatures. Consequently, the SMS numbers are by user as well. So whenever this goes out, if you want them to reply back to the team leader, then you would need something in this little message block here that says, hey, call this number and make it your team leader. But the way it's currently set up is it's the current user, whoever that current user is, that's sending that message. Does that make sense?
Yes, and we were doing that, but I have a new buyer's agent. When we went to set up her SMS number, it said contact customer service. So,
okay, we little tidbit there. We had some bad actors out there that were trying to use our SMS services illegally, and so we basically made it so that we have to turn them on for everybody. So we can, I'll get that turned on for you while I'm online here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so just as the review, as I'd mentioned, kind of best practices, your signature templates. So now back to the basics. So this is what I really wanted to talk about today, was the basics of a transaction. And it's really hard to just nail down one workflow that's universal that everyone can use in Revolve. But I wanted to talk about the basics because every agent does have their different processes for their transactions. So I wanted to review some of the activities that we have in our account that maybe will trigger an idea or two for you. So I'm actually going to open up a couple windows here just so we can kind of reference templates as well. I'm actually going to open up the buyer contract to close workflow that we have here. And I'm also going to open up another window so I'm not bouncing back too much. And I'm going to open up the templates so we can reference a couple. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this workflow. So I am currently in our buyer contract to close. You're going to notice here that we have a lot of groups, and I don't know if you're familiar with groups or not, but we do use groups to group certain activities. Anything in a workflow that is general will populate every time you begin a workflow. But there may be times where you have an activity that maybe is, as you can see here, maybe you do septic inspections, but maybe that's only on a rare occasion. So if you start the workflow on a property or a transaction and it does not have a septic, any septic activities, you can actually unselect the septic group. And when you start the workflow, those activities will not apply to that specific transaction. So we do use groups for that, but I really wanted to go over the activities here. So I'm going to open this up and you can see in just the general flow of things, the first two things when you start a transaction, I can't stress this enough, is you need to go ahead and you need to audit those dates and people, and you need to put in all of the important party members. Okay, so for example, my audit contract for dates, I'm going to open up that activity, and this is super important, and you're going to see I use a lot of merge fields here, right? Because as a checklist item, I want to make sure that my TCs are pretty much doing most of the activities in this workflow, that I want to make sure that they're entering all the dates. we need to have all of your important dates here because we want to make sure that the workflow is going to run properly. And without certain dates, things will get overlooked and missed, and we don't want that to happen. So as a checklist item here, if I have these in as merge fields, once you start the workflow, you can just enter the dates and it will automatically update the transaction for you.
The other key there, Lisa, is that especially if they're date fields like closing date or inspection date, stuff like that, if you've got activities that are based off of those dates, if you're coming in and you've got a date in there and maybe it's the wrong date, whenever you put in the correct date in that checklist, it will also recalculate all the workflow dates, important dates that are based off of that date. The calculations will recalculate themselves so that it adjusts. So if a closing date changes, everything that's based off of that closing date will change as well, even if you're doing it from the checklist or if you're putting it into the main database field as well.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, Mark. And what I'm going to do again is I want to run over the basics of these transactions, and then I'm actually going to start a transaction, and I'm going to show you how that works when I'm inputting dates and whatnot, and how it updates the transaction, and how you can actually drop and drag activities on the calendar, which is really cool. So let me go ahead and cancel this out. And as I had mentioned, dates should be the number one thing that you take care of. And then the people, top 2 activities in your transaction workflow. So if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in all of my people, it's the same thing with the merge fields. I want to make sure that in my checklist, I have all the party members, because what it's going to do is going to update the people tab in the transaction. Okay, so 2 super important things that you need to have done here. And then I also wanted to go over just a couple things as far as using tags. Okay, we use a lot of tags in Revolve. We tag people, we tag files, and we use tags and templates as well. It can be very, very powerful. So, and I think I may show you, and Mark, forgive me, but you can maybe talk about adding tags in this part of things, but I'm going to talk about tags when I start the transaction, because we can tag transactions. Yep. We can tag them when they close. That's a big one. So let me show you something here in the workflow. After closing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust tags. So I'm going to open this specific activity up because I'm going to tell the transaction when I've closed to go ahead and tag right here. I'm going to add and remove tags. I'm going to go ahead and tell the system to go ahead and tag the year that the deal closed, which I'm actually going to change this out because it's no longer 2021. I'm putting in 2022. And I'm also telling the system to go ahead and tag the client, past client, and I'm going to remove the active tag. So I put in an activity to go ahead and start removing and adding tags. So there's going to be a lot of things that we can do here with our actions. Go ahead and I'm going to save that.
Hang on for a second. Can you go back to that for 1 second?
Sure.
Just to let you guys also know, now, normally, whenever you're doing this, it's going to be an activity. It's going to pop up and say, hey, you need to change the tags. And then you check it that you want to complete the activity, and then it would allow you to run that action. Recently, within the past couple of weeks, we've added a little checkbox down at the bottom that says run action automatically. So if you're not sending a message that does some things automatically, if you want this action to be run automatically, you just want it to, after close, just automatically change the tags appropriately. You don't want to be notified of it and do it manually. You can go through and check that little option. So,
awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. I keep forgetting that's a new feature.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So this workflow, and when it updates these people or tags, this is updating the transaction and not the contact record. Is that correct?
You can also, based off of who is in the with field, have it tag the appropriate person. If there's a little checkbox that says update contact with tags. So one of them might be to, change some tags for the property or transaction, but you can also go in there and adjust the tags for the party members. In this case, the buyer and the seller could be changed with their tags as well.
Great. Thank you.
That was a great question, Daryl. And you can see here, I actually clicked on that adjust tags and I went into the with field of the activity and I'm telling which party members to tag.
Right.
Any other questions on that before we kind of move along?
I have a quick one. So in my checklist, I also have to update the categories, update purchase date. But when you're saying it can be run automatically, that is mainly just for adjusting tags, right?
Just tags. And if something has a checklist, the run automatically can't run. You have to complete your checklist first before it'll do that. So there are some caveats to what I said in that you can't be part of something that does have a checklist. Sorry about that. I should have said that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And also too, I think it's important, in your transaction workflows, and again, I don't know what your workflows look like, but it's really important to have an activity in your transaction workflows, both buyer and seller, to update your database after closing. So I'm actually going to open this one up for you as well. And you're going to see there's a checklist here to make sure that we update the phone number if needed, update the address. When we close out a transaction, it's not going to automatically update the address in the purchaser or the seller's information just because that address may not be their home address. This could be a second home. It could be an investment property. So the system's not going to automatically do that for you. It's going to have you update the contact status, the purchase date, as well as the categories. Okay, so we do have that as a separate checklist to update our buyer or seller. Let's see, what else can I share with you on this transaction to close? I think it's when you're scheduling, we have checklists in our activities as well. So let's say, for example, I want to schedule the buyer walkthrough. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to coordinate that buyer walkthrough and closing. I have it set up as an email, but there's a checklist before this email can run. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the little pencil icon here to edit. And when I'm coordinating the final walkthrough, it has merge fields in here as a checklist. So when I come to this, I'm going to say, oh, I need to schedule the walkthrough date. I did that for May 31st. I enter that date at 9 a.m. The closing date is June 15th. All of this is going to update the transaction, which is nice. That's why we have it in the checklist item. But for this specific activity, once I coordinate that final walkthrough and this is complete, I have the action here to go ahead and email the seller agent or confirmation to the buyers the walkthrough. And if I open up that template, because I completed those checklist items, these merge fields will populate with the day and time for both. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, it's real important that the fields that you use as merge fields in your templates are filled in. And it's good practice to confirm that by putting them in a checklist. Unless it's something that is going to be needing to be sent automatically, you can put that checklist item in there just to validate that it was filled in, it's got the right value, and whenever it sends it, then it sends it, and the content is what you think it is.
Right. And then one thing also that Mark was saying earlier, in these checklist items, when I'm implementing here the walkthrough date and walkthrough time, that's going to go ahead and populate that auto text reminder that we have for a final walkthrough. It's triggering another activity to happen. So once I put this date in here, let me just go ahead and cancel out here. Down below in my workflow, let's see, it's not that one. Bear with me here as I scroll through. An activity for a final walkthrough reminder. My little coaching tip here is if you ever have an automatic email or an automatic text going out as an activity, I usually put a little A in front of it so I know it tells me, oh, this activity is automated. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this specific automatic text reminder, and it's for the buyers. And in the with field, I think this is important because people get confused on this. If it is a text message, put all of the parties in here and the party members who you want that text message to go to. We're not just going to put a buyer here and then try to CC the other ones on a text message, because we know that that doesn't work that way. Okay, anyone to receive a text message, all party members should go here. And in the action, you're creating the action to send the text message. You're telling the system to send it automatically. Okay. This will send once you've scheduled that final walkthrough and put in that date into the checklist. It will populate this activity to send. Any questions on how that would work? Okay, perfect.
I have one question. Hi there.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, how you doing, Lisa?
Good, thanks.
If this was an email, okay, that you were sending to everybody rather than a text, and you copy yourself on it, but you have like 5 people that email is going to, are you going to get 5 copies? Are you supposed to get 5 copies of the email that goes out? And would it be better to put yourself in the parties rather than the copy too?
You're better off in that case to put yourself as a party member in that in the CC block or the BCC block of the action, because if you do put it in the with field, anything in the with field goes out to each person individually. So if there's a buyer 1, a buyer 2, if there's agent in there, whatever, there will be multiple emails going out. If you want to send one email, but CC or BCC people, then put that into the action. And if you scroll down there's a CC, BCC section where you can put the people. And in this case, if you're the buyer agent, put yourself in the buyer agent and CC yourself for that transaction or property.
Okay, I think I realized that, but I think what we did was when we had to walk through, we had the buyer 1, the buyer 2, and this was all emails instead of text. But buyer 1, buyer 2, and the inspector and the agent, and then I was copied on all of them. So I had 4 emails ended up in my email box.
You will be if in the event that you're BCCing or CCing and there's multiple people in that section. If you've got multiple party members selected, multiple emails will go out, in which case you will be CC'd multiple times.
Okay,
so
that
you
was
really
my
only
question.
want to put one person in there if you're planning on doing something like that.
Okay, terrific. That was my question. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions on that? And that was my big thing on, sharing with the text messaging. Everyone goes in that with field, but emails directed to one person, CC everyone else, because like you experienced, Julie, you had 4 or 5 people in that with field, got CC'd on every single email because those were individual emails that went out. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's a little bit on the text reminders that I wanted to share with you, because I think whenever we schedule a home inspection, final walkthrough, closing, it's key to have those auto reminders. Just set it up and it'll automatically send the day before those appointments. Wanted to talk to you about your reviews. I think a lot of people maybe start separate review workflows, but in our buyer contract to close, and we've worked with a lot of agents and I've had people change their minds, ask for the review just prior to closing. And you may argue with me a little bit on this, but we've talked with hundreds of agents on this, and it works because if you're sending a review request in your buyer transaction to close a few days prior to close, those buyers and sellers, they know they're closing and they're excited. It's like Mark's excited. So yes, they're going to be happy to do a review. And if they don't do it, you can actually have a second email that goes out here. So let me show you what I have here. So we actually have a first review ask 5 days before closing, but if they don't do the review at that time, you can do one the same day of closing and send out a second review ask. These are manual emails. We're not going to auto send these, but this is a manual ask in case they didn't respond to the first one. The day they close, hey, thanks again. Congratulations on your new home. We're so excited for you. If you please wouldn't mind doing this review, et cetera, et cetera. That is key. I think what people make the mistake on is asking for that review 2-5 days after closing, because those clients are busy. They're moving, they're painting, they're decorating, they have more on their plate. And we know that you did a great job for them. but they don't really want to take the time to focus on doing a review for you at that time. They're busy and they're excited, and the last thing on their mind is a review.
Hey,
So-
Lisa.
Uh-huh.
Just as a possibility here, and this is what I've done for a few of our agents, is you set up two separate ones, and then if they didn't respond to the first one, then you got kind of a fail safe that the second one would come in. One possible option is just on that first one, put a little checklist item that says, did I receive my review? And on the action, set it as a incomplete action, excuse me, to email on an incomplete action so that you can send it out as a manual email, and then set it for a 1 day or 2 day postpone so that it will loop back around and that activity will continue to pop up until they check the checklist. Then it's done.
That's a good
That
one.
makes
We
sense?
have not. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't know if that would be confusing for anyone that's on the call, but definitely something for me and my team to talk about, because we've had it set up this way for a few years now. That's been working well. But if we can set it up that way and make it a little, less cumbersome and more activities, absolutely.
That way, the second one wouldn't come up if you didn't receive the review. I mean, technically it would come up, but all you have to do is check it off and you don't have to think about it necessarily. So it's up to you.
Right.
Just,
Any questions on that? For those that are on the call, I hope we didn't confuse you too much.
yeah, sorry. I might have. Ignore me.
No, Mark, you have
No,
valuable
actually,
information.
Mark, I like that idea, because that was my question: is do you send the second one without knowing if you got the first one? So I
Yeah.
like the checklist.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that too. And that's something that I think we may reconsider. But for now, just so you can kind of see how we currently have it set up, is there was a checklist in here to see if we did get that review. And then if not, send the review. And we have it set up for a team. So I can say, send Julie's testimony or review request, send Cindy. So it'll depend on who's using the workflow, but it won't send or give us the choice until we're confirming that we have it. Mark, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing. On top of the reviews, just because your workflow closes doesn't mean the workflow ends. We have a lot of post-closing activities, so this workflow is going to continue to run for as long as you want it to. So you can see here in our workflow, after closing, we're going to have to-dos. It's super important to, as soon as your client closes, it may not be that day, but the second day, consider putting them on some sort of a past client nurturing workflow, because if you don't, then that client who is extremely valuable and brought you business is going to slip through the cracks. So put them on that nurturing workflow. And again, I don't know what yours looks like, but call them once a quarter or, semi-annually, send them a happy birthday, even a home purchase anniversary email. Just those personal touches really, really count. But on top of those past client nurturing workflows, you can have a 30-day follow-up, a 60-day follow-up. 6 months later, you can see here we have some examples here. 6 months after closing day, 18, even 2.5 years later, this workflow is continuing to run. Any questions on that as far as what I've gone over for asking for the reviews, post-closing activities, starting your client on a past client workflow? I'd love to hear what you guys are doing. Everyone's good?
I would really like to have a session at some point where we take like the listing process or the contract to close process, and if we can have 25, 30 agents there and just brain dump. We've done this in class whenever we do our 2-day class, and just brain dump of ideas of what you could do before, during, or after the process, all through it. And what are the things that you're currently doing and maybe isn't part of your workflow and could be or should be if it's not, and put it in there. So
I think that would be a great idea, because there's nothing like collaborating with a bunch of people, especially people outside of your team. Learn something new. What are people doing that's working for them? So Mark, I think that we should definitely put something like that on the books. Okay, so what I want to do now briefly is I'm going to go ahead and go to my dashboard, and I just want to go over briefly on how to start a transaction. Remember, keep in mind, we have buyer transactions and seller transactions. Whenever we're working with a buyer, you're always going to come over here to this plus button and create the transaction. You can do the same thing for seller side, but you can actually start it from the property if you choose to. So let me just show you a couple different ways. The property, if I'm on 123 Main Street, I'm just going to put this as active. So let's say this is my active MLS and I just went under contract. I'm going to go ahead and hit this drop down and I can go to pending, and it's going to go ahead and ask me if I want to start a transaction. My transaction is now started. That's for the seller side. But keep in mind that you can also go to the plus side and begin a transaction this way. You have to do it this way for the buy side. But I'm going to go ahead and begin a transaction here and I'm just going to say 555 Main Street. This is my cheat way of entering an address, but you should be putting in here the 3 dots. If you put in all the information here, it will actually display a Google map of the property. But I didn't want to take too much time doing that. I'm just going to X out of there. And I'm going to just show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's my MLS number. I'm putting in a sales price of $5 million. And my closing date, I'm just going to say 30 days from now. So I'll just say June 20th. That's the basic information that I have for my transaction. Now what I want to do is I want to put in my important dates. My transaction type is buy side. My earnest money is $50,000. And the buy side source, I can always reference where my buy side came from, and I'll just say it came from Facebook. Important dates. We want to make sure that we put in these important dates, but will also be triggered if you have it built in your workflow. That's just a fail safe, hey, don't forget these dates. But I'm going to put in my acceptance date as of today. Whoops, not the 11th, the 18th. My closing date, because I put it up here, automatically updated right down here. I don't know the home inspection date yet. That'll come later. But my first earnest due date is going to be due on the 23rd. And that's all I need for right now for this. So now what I want to do before I even start my workflow, best practice, I always put in my dates and my people. I want to go to the people tab, and I'm going to go ahead and put myself in as the buyer agent because I'm representing the buyer. And this is where you're going to put in the name of your buyer. And you can either click on the tab and you can type in the name, or if you need to search for someone, then let's just say I'm searching for Lisa.
Can I ask a question while you're doing this?
Sure.
Because I have a new buyer's agent, and so we were trying to do it on hers, but the vendors, like my home inspector, the attorney, all those people are not showing up on hers.
So in that case, it's simply because of the security settings, and she's not the record owner and or a record owner. So you could either add her to the record owner. The plan is, and we just got through a major process of doing some updates and stuff. So we'll actually be getting on this very soon, is to allow team members, agents, and vendors the option of sharing with other team members, even if they're not administrators. But if you put them in as a record owner on those vendors, they will show up for them.
Okay.
So did you see where I did that here? I just went into, like, for example, Miss Lisa's my title rep, and you're the record owner. And you can put in all of your team members here, and they'll all be visible to them.
Okay. Awesome.
Is there any way to get all on vendors to get all the team members automatically to have access, or do you have to just add every single one every single time?
Right now, you have to add every single one, but that's what I'm saying is we've got a change that will be coming up soon that will give you the option for agents, the contact types of agents, vendors, or team members to be shareable for your team.
Look at that. Oh, sorry. I thought I was muted. That's so cool.
No worries. Great question, though, by the way. So what I was going to show you when I'm adding the people, rather than clicking on it and typing it in, I can also go to the search bar and search for someone, so I can drop and drag. So I'm going to go ahead and say Miss Lisa's buyer 2. I'm just going to drop and drag that information, and she's going to go right in there. Okay. When you're doing a transaction, whether you're the buyer agent or the seller agent, when you close, for that information to display on your dashboard widgets as a sale, you need to make sure that you're using the correct record on your buyer agent. And that has to be the one with the head icon. That is your account record. Okay. Because sometimes you'll see there may be 3 Lisa tests in here. And if I just go in here and start typing Lisa and then 3 Lisa tests populate, I won't know which one is which because it doesn't display the head icon here. So we want to make sure that you're using the correct icon or the correct record here. So I'm going to go back up. I've just put it in people. I'm going to go ahead and go to the radar tab. That's where we go to start our workflows. And I'm going to start the contract to close workflow. And I'm just going to go 1RVB2, buyer contract to close. It's going to be run on 555 Main Street. And then again, before I start the workflow, I have the option of unselecting groups. So for example purposes, I'm just going to say there is no pool for this home. We do not do radon. There was no referral. And I don't do septic, no well, and no termite. I'm deleting those activities from this specific transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. So you can see in my workflow, I have it in a checklist item to make sure if I didn't select the buyer agent when I did the people tab, this would be blank. So it would give me the option to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to go ahead and select next. And it's going to be the same thing with the date. If I didn't have a closing date in here, it's just a reminder for me to go ahead and put that date in there. Keep in mind that these dates over here on this left-hand view, these are your milestone dates. When these dates are entered, they trigger the dates for the activities to appear when you start the workflow. Don't worry if there's no dates in here, because when you start the workflow, you don't know when the home inspection is. You don't know when the final walkthrough is, but those activities are built into the workflow, at least ours, are built into the workflow so they populate when it comes due. I'm going to go ahead and select next. And I have all my people in here. I'm not going to put everyone in here, but you're going to see I have my people in here. If anyone's missing, again, it gives me the chance to go ahead and enter those people at that time. And then I select done. I'm going to give it just a few moments here to generate all those activities. And I just wanted to show you a couple of activities on the checklist and how that populates on the calendar and how we can drop and drag. Or drag and drop, excuse me. I don't know why I always get those confused. Okay, for this specific transaction, I'm going to go to activities. And you can see here all of my activities have generated. Remember those first 2 activities that I shared with you that are extremely important. I'm still going to go through here as a checklist and confirm that I have everything. Something may not apply, so if it doesn't, just to get through the checklist, I can double click it and say these don't apply. Again, I don't have all my dates in here, so I just want to make sure that everything's going away. And I'm going to hit save and close. The same thing is going to be for the people tab. I'm not going to go through that for you really quick. I just wanted to go through as far as scheduling when the activity comes up. So let me just find one for you. Coordinating the final walkthrough, just to show you how those merge fields are working. This is an activity that's going to come up on June 14th because it's about a week before closing. When that activity comes up, here's my checklist. So I'm going to say I went ahead and I coordinated the final walkthrough for June 9th. The walkthrough time is going to be at 9:30. The closing date is June 20th. And I already know that I'm going to be closing at 9:30. I have no outstanding docs or key transfer, and the utility dates I'm not too concerned about. Save and close. Now that I've done that, because I had those merge field dates in my checklist, if I go to the transaction itself, up here to the transaction tab, it's going to show me those dates. Look at that. It updated the walkthrough date and the closing time. So now what it also has done, it has updated the activity for that automated text reminder date to go out, and it's going to show you the date down here. Let's see here.
Yeah, on the 9th.
Did you see that? Did I pass it?
No, it's just based off of the date you put in. Should be June.
Okay, got it. So really quick, the calendar tab, do you see all of the workflow activities? We've got to start the workflow. We can't just create the transaction and assume the dates are going to go on the calendar. You've got to start the workflow. But the nice thing about this is that we can go ahead and drag and drop activities if things change. So for example, if I go to the closing date on the 20th, or actually let me go to the final walkthrough. Let's say that's going to be on Saturday, right? It changed. They called me and said, you know what, we needed to have on Saturday. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Will this automatic by refresh?
It will. It may take. You may have to just hit the refresh on the screen. It may not refresh the calendar right away.
Yep, it did. Just refreshed. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if I had to refresh or not. I couldn't recall. But do you see how that can happen as far as when you start workflows, you can generate activities by checklist using those merge fields. It can, populate those automatic text reminders. You can go to the calendar. You can drag and drop activities as things change, because we all know during a transaction, things happen, things get pushed out. So we wanted to share with you that you can push things out on Revolve as well on the calendar. How simple was that for me to just drag it to another date?
And the mechanism for doing that is because it's 0 days from the walkthrough date. So by dragging an item that is 0 days from walkthrough date, if it's calculated on the walkthrough date, then it changes the walkthrough date in the database as well. So if you go to your transaction tab and look at the walkthrough date, it'll now be the 11th instead of the 9th. Mm-hmm. So it changed it there as well for you. So it's all because you're using a certain walkthrough date, the final walkthrough date field, and it's being calculated at 0 days. It knows it is the walkthrough date. So
any questions, anyone, on what I just did? I think that's a key factor here on our transactions when we can do that on our calendars, because things do change on a regular basis. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah. And the other nice thing is, because you're putting all these checklists and items in your workflow, if you've got an assistant, or maybe your normal TC is out of the office on a day, they're sick or something, somebody else can come in and take right over and all they have to do is follow a checklist. I mean, how simple is that? They don't even have to know how to use the system necessarily, other than just, hey, go to the activity, complete the checklist, and go.
Right.
I have a question. Sorry. It is just because my new buyer's agent just got her first contract. So we've just been muddling through all this the last couple days. But when she went to start a workflow, the workflows weren't showing up in her, when she was under her login.
Okay, so that's a security thing. If you go into security under her, you would have to go in as the administrator, go into the users and permissions, and click. And there's a section there for setting the permissions. Make sure that they have the ability to read workflows. This workflow read for all users, and that would allow them to have access to it. It's, if whenever you're setting up a brand new person, technically they're not part of your team until you put them as part of your team as either an administrator or give them the rights to your database. So it's all security.
So do you see how I did that, Cindy? You have to be in your account and then go to users and permissions and then configure their settings. So for her or him to see the workflows templates, click on add new. Workflow read for all users. They won't be able to change the masters, but it's giving them the ability to use the workflows.
And same with, and should add templates too?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Okay, perfect. You're welcome. Any questions on, because I wanted to go into a few more slides, but any questions just on the basics of a buyer or seller transaction, how to run it? I mean, I'm here. Take advantage of questions if you have them.
And we've got about 9 minutes.
Okay.
This is
The only
time check.
I have one more about the signature.
Mhm.
How does she add her social media icons or to her signature?
Yeah, just search for signature at the top to bring up the signatures. Go into the enhanced, and you can go to wherever you want those to be placed at, and click on that third button from the left on the bottom toolbar. First, third. There you go. The templates.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
there's a whole list of things, and there's a section for socials where you can do individuals, or you can do a whole line of them and then get rid of the ones that you don't want. Scroll down just a little bit further, Lisa, if you would. Keep going. Right there. There's basically the social media items, so you can place them wherever you want, and then on each one of them, click on it and adjust the link so that it goes to her link instead of just facebook.com or Twitter or whatever. Does that make sense?
Okay. What was the icon again on the signature?
It's that third one from the
This one
left.
there. This
So right here.
Yeah.
Great.
On the
Okay,
toolbar.
we got it.
And then scroll down all the way towards the bottom. There's a whole list of and the ones that you don't want, don't need, you can delete out or remove the cell. It is in a table. The table there is to prevent the icons from growing real large whenever you're sending on a mobile.
Yes. Do you have Ramsey on here? Because I tried adding Ramsey and it took over the screen.
We don't. We've got a lot of agents that use Ramsey. I really need to probably put that on there. I'll look for that logo.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Great question. Any other questions before we continue on with our 6 minutes that we have left remaining? What I want to do here, let me just go down a couple screens here. Just wanted to briefly talk to you about support because we are here to help you and answer your questions. Just want to make sure that you are all aware to search help to find anything that you have questions on, because we do have a help feature. Let me show you really quick. If I go down here and click on help, it's going to open up another window, and this is what I call our Google of Revolve. You can pretty much type anything in here and it's going to populate. So for example, if I type in, let's say I'm unsure about merge fields. I type that in, merge fields explained, complete list of merge fields. So I like to point out that, we do have a lot of information in Revolve, so just click on that help. If you have any technical issues with the platform itself, be sure to submit a support ticket, or you can use chat. But I wanted to point out this, how do I? This has a wealth of information. So if you just click on something, for example, transactions, if I click on this and I want to figure out how to buy or add a buyer transaction, etc., it's going to walk me through the process. So this how do I function here, this feature is amazing. So if you haven't already, take advantage of it because it will help you out a little bit there. Let me scroll on down. Really quick, just over the premium services, this is the department that I work with currently, and just want to let you know that if you do need some additional hands-on, and Julie, I think you may have gone through the Navigator program already, but if you feel that you want to go ahead and have some hands-on training with a personal navigator, we do have a semi-annual navigator program that goes for 6 months. And we also just released a self-service navigator program, which is kind of nice. So it's kind of go at your own pace type deal. And wanted to share that with you. It does include all of our navigator workflows, over 200 templates. I believe we installed 23 workflows. But for the personal navigator, you will meet with them with a personal navigator every other week for 6 months. The self-service program, again, is work at yourself at your own pace. And today, through I believe the end of the week, we're still honoring this for 33% off the original price for both personal navigator and self-service. This is an amazing deal. No pressure. Wanted to throw it out there for you guys so you were aware of it. But if you're interested, down here, email sales@revolve.com, and someone will be there to answer your questions if you have further questions on this. And
so it's
ahead,
almost $900 off of the $2,900 price. So little over 2,000.
Right. So it's almost just about 1,000 off of the self-service. And then depending on the size of the team, I can't really quote prices on here. That's all sales because we have individual and then team pricing as well. So depending on the team, will vary on price. So that's why I recommend reaching out to sales for additional questions.
Yeah, I don't ever deal with price stuff. I just deal product. So
yeah, and I deal with coaching. I don't deal with pricing. So okay, and then for today, I just really wanted to thank all of you for joining us and just to show our appreciation. We did just build out a new construction workflow for buyers. So if you're interested, give us a thumbs up in chat. Maybe Mark, if you have a record of who attended, if you'd like this workflow installed into your account, let us know. We'll install it for free. It has 38 templates, probably I think over 50 actions in this. So just released it, I think not even a week or two ago. So brand spanking new, and it's yours free today.
Thank you. That's awesome. We were thinking of working on one. If we've been through the Navigator, which I loved, do we constantly get any new workflows like that you come up with?
Not automatically, because we don't install, like the new construction workflow is not part of the Navigator program. It's just a workflow that we, working with a lot of clients, have requested a new buyer construction workflow. So we built it out for Revolve, not part of the program.
If you guys don't mind, throw your email address in that chat as maybe a personal if you don't want to share it. But I've got some people I just have first names on and I do not have do not know all the details. So we want to make sure we get you installed. Appreciate that.
Awesome. And while you guys are entering those emails, if you have any last minute questions, we're here to answer them. So let us know what you got.
No questions. Bunch of people wanting this.
It's
Awesome,
been
guys.
a huge demand for this workflow. And again, it is not going to be 100% perfect to meet your needs, but the foundation is there to at least get you started. We're really excited about it. And please feel free when you do install it, or if you have questions, I want you to write this email down. I want you to email navigator@revolve.com, because if you're using that new construction workflow, since we just released it, I'd love to hear feedback or where we can improve on it as well, because we want to make it better for you.
I've gotten several questions through the last few months of people asking for new construction workflows. So this is awesome. Thank you guys for putting that together.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. And that's all I have for you all today. It was an absolute pleasure being here. I hope that whatever I shared with you, you got a little bit out of it.
I'm sure that it's probably a relief. A lot of times whenever I'm doing the training, I sometimes get a little too technical at times. And it was always good to have, whenever I'd have Kendall Young on, she would do the interpretation of, Mark said this, but he means this.
Right.
And so thank you, Lisa, so much for joining us. If everybody give her a hand, we will probably have her on again if she's willing. So I really do appreciate you, Lisa, for doing that, and great content.
My pleasure.
All right.
And what was your email again for feedback on the?
Oh yeah, it's navigator@revolve.com.
He's going to do it.
Thanks, Cindy, for asking that again.
Okay.
Navigators or
just
Navigator.
Navigator, not plural, just Navigator@Revolve.
Navigator@Realvolve. Okay.
And who should I email to remind about getting Amy Malone on my team a SMS number?
I've already done that for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Y'all are the best.
So you should be able to go into the settings and set that up. If not, if you have any problems, let me know.
Okay, great.
Mark@realvolve.com.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Another good one. We will see you next week. Have a great one. Bye.
See you, everyone.
You too. Thank you.